So for me, my daughter, and tell me if this is what you mean by financial literacy discussions. When she asks me for money, I tell her, "Stop begging, go get a job." Is that what you mean? Is that,
No, no. I mean,
is that what you mean?
no, I mean,
Money doesn't grow
reward
on
her.
trees.
We
My,
all
my,
got
my,
that lesson, Dre. We
yeah,
all
my
learned
dad.
that
Yeah,
lesson.
my dad used to say, "Money doesn't grow on trees. Go get a job."
No.
Welcome to another great episode of Dre and Smiley, the Inner Circle.
Dre, I'm just like super stoked because I keep telling Dre I walk all the time. Every Saturday or Sunday I walk 10,000 to 15,000 steps, and I'm just strolling, losing weight. I used to be really big, like 230 pounds, and now I'm like 205, and it's mostly walking. But the reason why I walk so much is because I get to listen to different posts from different people. And while I was walking on my TikTok, just scrolling through, Dr. Brown popped up on my feed. And she said some amazing things about what she does and how she's an educator and different things. So I am super stoked, Dre, to have Dr. Brown on our podcast today. Before we get into the podcast, let me do a little brief introduction from her. Dr. Brown is a veteran teacher of high school English language arts serving in public education. Dr. Brown holds a BA in English literature, an MFA in humanities, creative writings, an MFA in English literature, and a PhD in education, curriculum and instruction, understanding the connection between literacy and economic prosperity. Her passion is increasing literacy in adolescents, an often neglected topic. Dr. Brown, thank you for being on the podcast, and tell us, how did you blend literacy and economics together? It seems like it's total opposite, economics and writing. So talk to us about how you got started and how you got all these degrees and different things like that.
Well, first, I want to thank you for reaching out to me and inviting me to be on your podcast. I really appreciate the opportunity to come and share what I'm doing and what I'm working on, and the future of where I'm headed with all these degrees, like you say, right? Starting with the first question, how I blend economics and education, we all understand that our education is in some ways connected to our economic prosperity. We know that students who don't at least get a high school diploma have a lower socioeconomic status. And as we are moving into the 21st century, there are different skills that are becoming important. Technological skills. We didn't even have the internet when I graduated from high school. And with the invention of every household having a computer, everybody has a smartphone, there's the internet. That's a whole new field that is open for education and employment. And so it's important that we let our students know that you have a talent, you have a skill. And my mother always said, whatever you love to do, find a way to make money at it. You will feel like you're not working. And if I can help my students figure out what their passion is and help them find a career that involves that passion, I feel like I'm giving them the keys to economic prosperity. And not only that, but the joy of life. There are too many people in the world who go to work 40 hours a week, 25, 30 years, however long you're working to retirement, and they're miserable. They're absolutely miserable. No matter how much money you make at the end of the day, if you are there and you just do not want to be there, that's a struggle. And I'd like to help my students avoid that. Now, all these degrees, I'm a nerd. I'm just going to own it. Own it. I've always loved reading and writing and learning. My mother bought me the Encyclopedia Britannica Junior set, and I actually sat and read it.
Whole thing?
Yes. I was like, I know. I was like, Mom, look at this. And she humored me. She was like, really? Yes. I know at some point in her mind, she's thinking, I don't want to crush her thirst for knowledge, but if she run it here with that book one more time. And it was fascinating. And one time I was in junior high school, I think 7th grade, and I had a history report. It was due the next week. And I'm up and I'm doing it. My mother said, it's time to go to bed. I was like, but Mom, it's so fascinating. She said, but it's due next week. I said, I know. She's like, look, I'm going to let you stay up 10 more minutes, then I'm going to make you go to bed. It's not due till next week. I said, okay.
So while I was researching you, I noticed that you're an avid reader, but you're also an author. Can you tell us
Yes.
about the book you have written or the book you are writing or both?
Well, I just published a nonfiction book, Credit Recovery Through Demonstration of Mastery. And that is based upon a system of credit recovery. Now, credit recovery, a lot of people in the financial world are thinking FICO score. No, this has to do with students who are taking a class that they need to graduate and they don't pass it the first time. Traditionally, the methods to recover those missing credits is either retaking the class face to face, which means sitting through it the entire semester or year that you missed, or taking it online. They have an online credit recovery platform. Well, some of us teachers learned that some of the students were cheating. And of course, we can't have that. We can't. And I ended up with an extra free period because they had collapsed a different class because the master schedule was out of sorts. And once they fixed the issue, it drew a lot of kids from my class that was also in an advanced band class. And so I went to my admin. I was like, well, listen, I have this idea. I think it's going to really bridge the gap between what we're currently doing for credit recovery. And I pitched it to her. She goes, well, it sounds really good. If your team, your ELA team is on board, I'm all for it. I said, okay. So I pulled it together, went back to the team and said, okay, I pitched it to Miss Johnson. She's on board. If we can get on board and figure out, if we're all on board, we can do this. And they said, okay, but I'm going to need to see a little more of the details. So I went and I pulled all the resources, basically did a mock unit. And my ELA team was 100% on board. They loved it because it gave the students the opportunity to recover credits without having to put them in another face-to-face class, which overloads their work schedule. Now their class sizes are larger, and it stops the ability for students to be able to cheat because we put certain measures in place. They don't have access to technology when you're in the room for credit recovery. It's you, a piece of paper, and a pencil. So you either have mastery or you don't. And it's been very successful. And currently it's in its 3rd year. So I wrote it into a book. I said, this would be something that most high schools, I believe, can get behind because it offers students that second chance. It doesn't increase workload for teachers. And there's the accountability piece where we know students are really demonstrating their proficiency in mastery.
I love that. Now, were you able to leverage that book as part of your dissertation, or was that dissertation something separate?
My dissertation was something different. This was, I had already decided what I want to do for my dissertation, which is it's the studying the impact of mirror books on students' attitude towards reading. I was already in the process of that and just in love with my research. So I didn't want to derail and go a different direction, but I did put it on the back burner and said, as soon as I'm done with this PhD, I'm going to put this in a book.
Well, 2 questions. What's a mirror book? I apologize if that's a dumb question.
No, it's not. Believe it or not, there are people in education who I say mirror book, they go, what? Which
I can guess what it is.
Right.
If I were to guess, I would say these are books that reflect me and my background. So,
Yes.
for example, about Black men or Black history, that type of thing. Is that a mirror book?
You are spot on. Absolutely, you are spot on. Yes. And I want to acknowledge what you said. You said, I apologize if that might be a stupid question. The crazy thing is I say that to people in education and they go, what? Mirror book? What are you talking about? And the impact of mirror books is something that has been studied in research since early 2000. And talking to educators in the current system, if they don't know what it is, that there's this gap between the research that's actually going on and implementation. And that bridge, which is usually teachers' credentialing program, there's a lot of information that's being left out in those programs. So you are spot on with what it means. And because it's not often studied and or even discussed, people don't know what it is. And also because the ELA canon has not evolved to keep pace with the students that we are educating today. It needed to be studied. We talk about reading levels all the time. The NEAP scores that come out, oh, the kids can't read, but nobody's talking about what to do about it. And when you research what's going on in terms of intervention programs, most of the intervention programs focus on elementary. But we already know there's still an issue of students having low literacy scores in secondary, which is your junior highs or your middle schools, depending on where you live, and high school. So something needs to be done. We need to study it and stop just lamenting that it's a problem.
Well, that leads to my follow-up question. What did you discover through your research and your dissertation?
Well, I discovered that students' attitude towards reading does improve when they are exposed to mirror books, and their attitude towards, well, let me go backwards to go forward. The survey that we used is broken into 4 compartments. There's academic print, academic digital, there's recreational print, recreational digital. So not only are you getting their overall attitude, you're getting these sub-quadrants. So students' attitude towards academic print improved, while students' attitude toward digital recreational decreased. It was not measured statistically significant, but there was a numerical shift. So that brought me more questions. Okay, well, what could we do to see where we could approach that scale of tipping it into measuring statistically significant? Would a longer study do it? Or I chose books that I thought would be mirror books for my students. Who's to say that those students did not see them as mirror books for themselves? If I could find out what books students saw as mirror books and then survey them, give them the book, then measure them, might that difference be statistically significant? So I came away with a little bit of an answer, but more questions as well.
Sure. But it sounds like at the very least, this is the beginnings of a program that you could put together and then market to different school systems and the like so they can see improvement on their test scores. Is that something that you've considered?
Yes, that is. I have like 455 plans, and that's one of them. Listen, my ADH brain is like, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. Let's prioritize. Absolutely.
Sure.
One of the things that sent me to school to get this PhD in the first place was not only students saying that they had a poor attitude towards reading. I don't like reading. Reading is boring. It was the follow-up questions that I asked of my students. Now, this was a 10th grade class several years ago. And I was really surprised to have them tell me, yep, they're talking to a nerd. So I was really surprised to have them say, well, reading is boring. I was like, what?
What do you mean? What kind of language are you speaking right now?
But I wanted to delve and I asked a question and I said, well, have you always found reading boring? And by now, it wasn't just me and this student having this conversation. It's a whole class discussion. And collectively, they agreed no. Well, there was a few that was like, yeah, I've always found it boring. But the majority of them had not felt that way. There was a time where they did like reading. And through continuing to question them, I learned that somewhere around middle school, where they lost choice in what to read and were just given books to read and through their ELA classes, that's where they fell off in the love of reading. They didn't like it anymore. And they shared with me the joys of their teacher taking them to the library and getting new books and coming back. And the reading time in class, the teacher would say, okay, we're going to do our, whatever amount of time for reading. They enjoyed it because they chose the books. And so that was what really sent me back to get my degree in the first place. I said, let me study this. What's going on? And conversations I was having with my peers that one of my colleagues, I won't say her name, just said, all we do is read literature by old dead white men. Why is that? When we are educating a populace that is predominantly minorities, if you look at it now, why are we still reading the same literature? It's as if to say no one is taking the time to expand the literary canon. And to do so, you have a different name for it. It's multicultural literature. Why does it have to be multicultural literature? Why couldn't we just have all-inclusive literature? What's going on with the language here? And so I do plan on revamping curriculum because I'm given a lot of choice. I'm fortunate to work for a school district that allows me to choose what I read with my students as long as I'm teaching the standards. So I would like to create curriculum that is just bundled. If a teacher is wanting to read, say, the book, The Hate You Give, but their district is also saying, I don't care what you read, just teach these standards. But I've created already the discussion questions, the text-dependent questions, and I have labeled them with the standards. A teacher could say, okay, now I don't have to sit down on my minimal planning period, select a book and then create all the questions. And I know that that's needed because in my dissertation, I looked at how curriculum is created and marketed. And one of the things that I discovered is that they call them the big three: Texas, California, and Florida. They are the states that most frequently adopt curriculum across all their subjects. So we're talking billions of dollars. So if you are a curriculum publisher, you are catering to those top three. Everybody else just gets the leave-ins. And so if you look at the comparison of those three states, one is more liberal, the other two are much more conservative. So what do you think is continually to be created?
Makes sense. So I'm going to pass it over to Smiley here. A couple things real quick. Just want to mention that stand out to me is that you clearly have a passion for this, right? Teachers are the one profession, this is probably a quote somewhere, they're the one profession I can think of, the only profession that prepares everyone for any other profession, right? So because of that, the role you guys play in our society is, it's I can't even put words around it. Like there's no one more important than the education.
Vital,
critical, essential.
There's no one more important in our society than the educator, right? I can think back, I'm sure Smiley can too, of teachers I've had and throughout my schooling that stood out and left a huge impression. My geometry teacher. When I was in college, my communications 401 teacher is the guy. And these teachers weren't easy. They weren't fun. But they really, now as an adult looking back, I could appreciate them. But I was in the class, when I was in the class, I'm like, oh, this is miserable. When's it over? What time is it? Seeing your passion, I can imagine your students are excited to come to your class. I imagine that your students feel that you have a genuine interest in them succeeding. And I can only imagine the high ceiling that's being created because of what you're exposing to them. So
thank you so much for saying that. I appreciate you noticing that. Excuse me. And I do have a large number of students who do see my passion. There are always those small little nuggets where like, she just always want me to work. That's right. And I actually had a conversation with my AP students the other day. And they said, why do we have to do that? I said, okay. And I drew this quadrant. If you can just think of 4 boxes. 2 as a column on the left, 2 as a column on the right. I said, I work and teach in the realm of high support, high expectation, which is all the way over to the top. I said, there are some teachers who have high expectations of you, but they don't support you. There are some teachers who give you so much support, but they don't have high expectations. I said, I'm in this quadrant right here. I'm not going to ever lower my expectations, but I will give you the help that you need to get there. And they were like, facts. Yeah. And one of my students
No
said,
cap, no
right,
cap.
right. And one of my students said, you a real one, Dr. Brown. Yes. And I actually had another conversation with a student just yesterday, and they asked me for an extension on an essay. And I'm very understanding. If there's something going on that prevented you from doing it, I can be lenient. One student, their grandmother was in the hospital. They were there for a couple of days. Absolutely. No problem. But this student was like, whoa. I said, you got to plead your case. I'm going to look, gaze those rhetorical strategies that we just talked about and convince me. And they said, well, I wasn't here on Monday. I said, okay. No, I was absent on Monday because I had something to do. I was at work, but out of my classroom. I said, okay, I wasn't here on Monday. I said, but what about Tuesday? We were both here on Tuesday. Oh, well, I didn't ask. I said, well, that's the onus on you. I said, when have you ever asked me for help and I didn't give it to you? No. I said, I always help you, right? Yeah. I said, well, for that reason, I'm not going to extend it. Yeah. I'm not. I said, but I will take what you have and I'll grade you accordingly. I said, but we live and we learn. Next time you will ask a question. I said, this won't completely tank your grade. So I don't want you to think that that's going to happen. I said, but we all have due dates and deadlines, and we miss them. We have to have those consequences. So I was able to deliver it with love, and she nodded and she understood. So I think we're good.
Smiley, I had chills, man. She said, I'll take what you have and I'll grade you accordingly. What is that? Wait a minute. I'm like, no. Wait. Can we have a duel, Maria? That's hardcore. I will grade you accordingly. Go ahead,
right. Because it's a choice to sit there and not ask questions. It's a choice.
So, which age group do you teach?
Is it juniors and seniors?
Juniors and seniors.
Juniors and seniors.
Awesome. And let's assume you had Mansa Musa money. What would you, infinite amount of resources, Bill Gates billions, what would you do to change the education environment or eliminate the literacy challenge in America with the young people? Is it a matter of not having the good content of authors and books that they're interested in? Or is it a matter of the wrong equipment or lack of passion? Well, if you had infinite resources, what would you do, and what would you use those resources to do to improve literacy and education?
I would fund research. As I mentioned before, a lot of the interventions that we talk about are at the elementary school level. There aren't any intervention strategies that have specifically been researched for junior high and high school. So I would always start with research. And then based upon what the research data provided us, then I would make choices for implementation. But one of the things I've seen in education is that it will throw good money after bad or completely reverse a system. It swings like a pendulum. Okay, we're doing this right now. Okay, well, we didn't give it long enough to see if it works. So now we're going to go back and do this. Oh, well, remember that strategy we tried back in the 1970s? It's been repackaged and called something else. So now we're going to go over here. There's a lot of jumping around instead of taking a moment and saying, we have a problem. Let's figure out what the problem is and then make some choices.
Now, are you in a public school system or private?
Public.
And do you see vast differences between public and private? I ask these questions because Dre and I, we have kids who are in high school, and sometimes you get the debate between the public school system versus the private. And is it on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, 1 being terrible? Are they comparable, like a 7 and 7, private and public, or 7 and 8? Or how do you see it as an educator in the public system?
It's really hard to compare only because private schools have choice. They can choose to not take your child if your child is going to lower their ratings, right? all of our students passed the SAT with this score number high above. They can choose, well, I'm not taking Johnny because Johnny going to put our score down into 900. And public education, we have a lot of students who are English language learners. We have students who have IEPs, 504 plans. A private school can choose to not take your child because they're on an IEP. So you really can't, it's like comparing apples to oranges.
That's fair. I like the way you broke that down because I never thought about it, that they're selective. So they're like, you know what, we want our scores to be, it's skewing the numbers because you're defining your population set, your population size.
Exactly.
Well, that's awesome. So let's say right now it's 2025. You have, how many books have you published?
I have the one nonfiction book based upon the credit recovery program. And I do have research that is out there. I took my dissertation along with my dissertation chair, and we truncated it into an essay. And I'm actually presenting my research at the upcoming ERA conference in Denver, Colorado, later in the month of April. So they received over 11,000 entries, and I was one of the 120 chosen.
Wow.
Congratulations.
That's huge.
Awesome.
Yes.
Can you tell us about this conference? How do you say it again? ERA?
It's ERA. It's
ERA.
It stands for American Education Research Association. So it's AERA. And yes. And once they let me know I was going to do it, I was like, oh my God, I'm sorry about that. But there was another little caveat down there. And they said, well, we're going to allow up to 20 people besides just having your digital presentation, which you can come and you can stand by it and hope people ask you questions. We're going to allow 20 of you to actually do what they're calling an e-lightning TED Talk, to talk 3 to 4 minutes about your research and take 1 to 2 minutes of questions. So I was like, I want to do it. And they selected me for that too.
Wow.
So
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I'm one of the 20 people who actually gets to give a verbal and visual presentation of my research.
And that's coming next month, right? In May, you said.
Yes.
Are you ready?
No, April.
Oh, April. That's
the
even
end
closer.
of April.
So,
yes.
are you ready?
I'm ready because this was my dissertation. So I lived and breathed this research for a year and a half. So I'm ready. Of course, there's those jitters because thousands of people go there and I don't know how many are going to come to this particular breakout session that I'm in. So I'm nervous and I'm giddy, but I'm excited too. I'm like, what outfit am I going to wear? My whole thing is Nikes and Starbucks cup. I'm like, what am I wearing?
Wow, that is super awesome. That is amazing. So as I started, we're in 2025. Where's Dr. Brown 2035? Dr. Brown is
retired and out of the country.
The Burkina Faso?
I am actually looking between several different countries. I'm a nerd, right? So I'm doing my research.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm looking at Ghana, Senegal, Costa Rica, Ireland, Spain, and I can't remember the list. And so I've looked at, what do they need from me in terms of being able to come and live there? And it'll be very feasible. For instance, Ireland requires that you submit your paperwork, and they actually have one of their country accountants call you. They want to make sure you're just not going to be a drain on the society. They're going to talk about your finances. And as long as I can say, hey, here's my retirement. This is what I'm making. I'm not going to be a drain on on your country. Stamp of approval.
Nice.
Yes. And some countries require that you come in making a financial investment, meaning are you going to buy some property or things of that nature?
Sure.
That's interesting you say that because, not to get political or anything, but when Trump said that he was to charge $5 million as a gold card to come in, are you finding that other countries say if you go to Ghana with, let's say, $2 million, you're like, all right, you can come in, or you go to any other country, do they allow that? Or I thought that was something like, man, how is he going to charge $5 million to get here? But I guess other countries are doing it too. That's not an initial thought of his, huh?
No, well, they're not really charging you. They're looking just to make sure that you're not going to come and be a financial drain. They want to know that you can come and support yourself. So, like I was
Mhm.
discussing with Ireland in the research that I done, their conversations with you is just to make sure you can support yourself when you come there. Because a lot of these places have Medicare for all, have medical insurance for everybody, unlike here. So they just want to make sure you're going to be economically self-sufficient.
Which
Yeah.
makes sense. Which makes sense. We had a
Yeah.
guest recently who lived in China. You mentioned the healthcare for all. She lived in China briefly. She had a torn ACL, and I believe she said the entire cost of the surgery was covered. So that's, compared to our system here. Another question here about the education thing. So it's something that I'm really passionate about and enjoy. And so tell me this: your role again is vital, is critical. We established that earlier. How do you partner with the parents and the community to support what you're doing in the classroom? Because you only have these students for X number of hours per day. So, they could leave the house, leave your classroom, and then, forget everything that you've done. And now you have each time they come back, you have to I don't want to say program them, but you have to, do your work again. So what strategies have you implemented to incorporate the parents and the community to kind of help support what you're doing in the classroom?
For me, I think it's the most important thing is transparency, being absolutely clear with both students and parents what the expectations in the classroom are and what you're going to do to help them meet those expectations. And of course, that helps when you are very aware of your content and you can speak with that expertise. Also, when you are collaborating with, as I do with my colleagues, we're making collective decisions about what to do. So it's not just my mind looking at it, it is all of our expertise in the room making those decisions. So I very rarely have issues that I can't explain to even a student. Okay, well, how do I get my grade up? Okay, well, you're missing this, this, and this. Okay, no problem. Well, I didn't do well on this essay. Okay, well, here's how we redo that. I take the time to comment on my students' work. Here's where you need to improve. And I also do mastery grading. So your grade in my class doesn't suffer because you did not do well on something the first time. Your final grade in the class is going to be reflective of what you scored on that standard when I graded you on it the last time. So, for
Mm.
instance, if we're doing a rhetorical précis and it's out of 5 points, the first time you did it, you got 2 points. I'm going to tell you how to improve it. This is what you need to do. Now, the next time you do it, you got 3 points. I'm erasing the 2 and now you're on the 3. Now, the next time you do it, you got 4. I'm erasing the 3, you're on the 4. So, when you leave my class, your grade actually reflects what you have demonstrated mastery of. And instead of averaging those scores out, which now you're at a 5, you're good at it. You're 100%, but now your grade's a 75 because you weren't good at it in the beginning. So it took a shift in really understanding grading practices. And that was part of what brought about the credit recovery through demonstration of mastery, not penalizing students for taking a while to catch a concept or even to care to do the work to catch the concept, but rewarding them for their growth and where they are right then.
Yeah, so what I love about that is that you're able to see their growth, right, through their grades while not penalizing them for growing, because that's why you're in classrooms to grow. And you're capturing their best grade, which shows the accurate reflection of the extent of the growth, right? Where as if you
Yes,
average it out, that gives you a false sense of how much they've grown in that classroom.
exactly.
How did you discover that grading system? How did that come
Oh,
about? Is
through
that something?
research, I read a
Yeah.
wonderful book called oh good God. It's by Tony Donan and his team. I can't remember the title of the book. Sorry.
That's okay.
But it was through works that he did. He was a principal and he went to 10 of his teachers there and said, "Hey, I've got this idea. Who's on board to try this with me?" And the 10 teachers who decided they wanted to do so were reflective of the different departments. They had some from English, some from social science, someone from art, someone from math. And so they really sat down and decided how they were going to redo their grade book to grade on content and mastery. And it was really transformative for that group. And then they decided to implement it on a more school-wide level. That was an eye opener for me. It's like, what? I can do that? I can just drop that lower score? Of course I can. Of course I can.
Yeah.
Now, the only place where it gets tricky is in my AP classes, adhering strictly to the AP standards from units 1 to 3, they have different standards, and those standards are not taught every single unit. They sort of spiral around. So while unit 1, 3, and 5 might focus on standard 1A, it's absent from the others. So for them, I just dropped their lowest score to kind of not penalize them for not having the skills in the beginning. So you really got to kind of think about how you can be have a score in the grade book that best reflects students' learning while being accurate. Because if I dropped all of them, now I don't have any grades for 1A. So you really got to take the time to think about it.
Sure. I want to pass it over to Smiley here. One question. Smiley and I both got really lucky in terms of the kids that we have. They're very hardworking, very intelligent, et cetera. What advice would you give us in terms of, how we can support them in their educational journey from while in high school and then from high school on to college? What advice would you give us?
Keep having those conversations about what's important to them in school, what they're liking, what they don't like. I would think about career guidance in terms of what they're passionate about and how you can help them find those passions to prepare them for their career, and financial literacy. Have lots of conversations about the money. I think I grew up in a household where we didn't talk about money. That was kind of the thing we didn't discuss. And it was detrimental to me going out on my own. Now I don't know what to do, right? I have the technical knowledge of how to balance a checkbook, but I don't actually really know anything about interest rates. I don't know about good debt versus bad debt. We didn't have those conversations, but I changed that with my children. We had those conversations. So definitely start some financial literacy discussions.
So for me, my daughter, and tell me if this is what you mean by financial literacy discussions. When she asks me for money, I tell her, stop begging, go get a job. Is that what you mean?
No. I mean, no. I mean,
money doesn't grow on trees.
We all got that message, Dre.
Yeah, my dad used to say, money doesn't grow on trees. Go get a job.
No, now see, you may not like this, but I'm gonna tell you, you got to pay her for those good grades.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Sure.
And then talk about what she wants to do with the money.
Well, she already knows. She has. That's the hard part, believe it or not, is trying to get her to move away from getting these things that I don't even know what they're called. The stuff that and into, hey, there's going to be a rainy day. Save up for that, But she's pretty good with it. She's pretty good with it.
Good. Yeah. See, you're having those conversations.
Oh, that is so awesome, Dr. Brown. Before we move into Final Four, is there any questions we should have asked her that we didn't ask her?
No, you asked about the things that are near and dear to my heart. You asked about my research, the credit recovery program that I came up with. I will say that, I want to encourage people to go get my book. Yay.
Where can we find it?
Please tell us.
You can find it on Amazon. It's also on my website.
And the
name of it again?
drvalcinebrown.com is my website. The title of the book is Credit Recovery Through Demonstration of Mastery.
I like it. I can't wait to go get it. That is super cool.
You.
Well, we're going to go into Final Four, and I'll kick it off with Alive or Dead. Who would you like to spend 24 hours with and why?
Jesus. I got a lot of questions. Lot of questions. Like, God, like Jesus, I know you are really compassionate towards people. You be trying to give people chances, but why somebody gets many chances? I'm just saying. Listen, I want to know.
Yeah,
Jesus,
yeah, yeah.
why? Why,
Why?
Jesus?
Right,
Why?
right,
I'm trying to see your vision. Help me see your
right,
vision. I
right,
know that your plan is perfect, but I'm not
right.
seeing the vision.
Just
Yeah.
tell me why. Why do the bad people live so long?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And the young people die young. Okay, here's my question for you. What's the biggest risk you've ever taken?
Oh. Getting divorced with 3 children after being a stay-at-home mom and wanting to go back to school to get my bachelor's degree. That was huge, but I believed in myself 100%. I've never struggled with belief in myself. I've also never struggled in my faith. So I believe when God places something in my heart, a passion for something, that the doors are going to magically open. So I walk in that faith. I knew I was supposed to be a teacher. I just knew it. And at the time where I was returning to go back to school, I remember one person had a conversation. They said, well, all these people are getting laid off. We're in a recession. You won't be able to find a job. I was like, oh, I will. I don't know about them other people, but I'm going to have a job. And I called my friend Mignet, who's, my sister in faith. We've been friends so long. We're not just friends, we're sisters. And I said, can you believe they said that? I said, they were well meaning. She goes, you were absolutely right. Those other people won't have a job, but you going to have a job. And sure enough, out of my bachelor's straight into my teaching credential, got hired my first year out.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
Love it. Love it.
So, for the third final four question, what is the worst advice you ever received? Something that was just the worst advice that you would say, don't listen to this person or don't listen to that advice.
mm, I
And
don't
why?
I don't think nothing really stands out to me as a shocking piece of advice I've ever received. But I think the reason is because I've surrounded myself with like-minded people and I don't easily seek advice. I seek advice from a small cohort of people, and I don't ask advice of people who I don't believe are on my same path. So I've never really got a piece of advice that was shocking. So that would be,
It's
there's a second piece of advice: surround yourself with the right people.
Well, there was a guy, an investor called Charlie Munger. He was Warren Buffett's right hand man. And he would say this similar thing that you mentioned. He said he would get his advice from the imminent dead because any advice he sought, he would just read books. And he would just like to read the books of someone who already lived and just died because they're not going to change up. Their advice is going to be sound. So he just reads. He was an avid reader and he would just get his advice from the imminent dead. Whenever he was struggling or challenged with something, he just read up and read until he gets his opinions from the
I
dead.
love that. I love it.
Love that.
Awesome.
Speaking to a reader, of course I love that.
Of course, you
Yeah,
love
the imminent dead.
that.
They called him the imminent dead. So he would just read whoever was important to him. And I thought that was interesting because there's a lot of advice in the ground with the people who lived and experienced a lot of things that we have yet to experience. So you get a lot of wisdom from the dirt, I guess.
That is true. That is
Very
true.
poetic. I like
Thank
that.
you. Thank you, Dre.
What's one thing you wish you were better at?
Time management. I struggle with that. I know it doesn't seem like it with all these things I do. I recently was diagnosed with ADHD OCD, and my ADHD predominantly manifests itself in memory and time management. So I can quickly become overwhelmed with too many things I need to do and start to think, well, where do I start? So I've had to learn to start putting systems in place, but that's an area that I still struggle with. So I wish I was better. So often I just have a poor concept of time. I will say to myself, I can get this done in 20 minutes. No, it didn't. It took me 45. Now I'm late for the thing that I was supposed to do after the 20-minute task. So that's what I've struggled with it all my life. And I never really understood why until I was diagnosed with ADHD and got those caveats to say, okay, that's why. So that's what
Yeah.
I wish I was better at.
And you mentioned the impact, it impacts memory a bit too. I saw one of your posts, which I was dying laughing because I could completely relate to. You had some piece that you took off your car and you put in a safe place. The place is so safe that yeah, no, that happens to me all the time. I'll take something and put it away. I'm like, I remember taking it and saying I was going to put it here because I'll remember to get it from here when I need it, and I have no idea where it is. Did you ever
And my
find it?
memory's so bad, I can't even, I remember the video, but I can't even remember what I was looking for. And I can't even tell you if it ever showed up.
But I don't know if it comes with age, because one time I was walking around the house and I was looking for my glasses. And I'm like, I had the old glasses on. I'm trying to go out looking with the new glasses. So, and then my daughter's like, Dad, I'm like, you see my glasses? She's like, they're on your head. And I'm like, oh my God. So now the corrective action is I won't put on two glasses at the same time. Because I put this up and put on the other glasses up. I got these are up there.
One time I was looking for my cell phone with my cell phone in my hand.
You see my
Where's my cell
cell
phone? Oh, it's here. Oh,
wow, Dr.
Yeah.
Brown, we could talk to you all Saturday, and I really appreciate you, A, responding to my invitation, B, for showing up, and C, for just being amazing, just sharing the world with your authenticity, your amazingness, your awesomeness, and I can't wait to see you at this event and to see what your presentation is. That's just super awesome. And like you mentioned, your book, I can't wait to hear about your book or to read your book when it's published and all that good stuff. So thank you from the bottom and top of our experiences, our hearts, for being here. Thank you.
and thank you so much for the invitation. And let me tell you how God works. I had just decided a week before. I said, okay, well, my book is coming out. I want to start doing podcast interviews. And within a few days, you sent me that message. God is good. See, that's why God has rewarded my faith. I was like, I'm going to publish a book. Okay, I'm going to publish a book. Oh, I'm going to do podcast interviews. And then you send me the message.
There it
I was
is.
like, okay, God, I know for sure, I'm walking in my
Yeah.
purpose.
Confirmation.
Right.
Yes.
It was serendipitous. It was
Yeah, yeah.
serendipitous.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
You
I
know,
like that SAT word.
we may not, a lot of times people don't start a journey because they can't see what the path looks like to the finish line. But faith in God means you start walking. You start walking and those doors just start to open up.
Yep. Yep. Dr. Brown, your energy is so infectious. I love your energy. You got a brother thinking about, man, I should go back to high school, just check out her class, just to,
Right?
you know, just to
on
make it
by.
fun again.
Come on by. We're doing Poetry March Madness right now. It is on.
Nice.
I like
Nice.
that.
Nice. Yeah. Like Smiley said, I really appreciate you accepting the invite and being on the podcast.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you both.
All right.